Good for them though. I think, you know, the game gets a solid 7. I give it a 7. It's definitely got rough spots. There was some really good stuff. I really enjoyed parts of it. But I guess, you know, here's some of my thoughts, right? So I think the combat is subpar. I think they did okay with some of the telegraphing. They definitely have issues with enemies having collision volumes that do damage to you that don't sync well with the animations. So you take a lot of cheap damage. I think the blocking in this game is pretty poor. I mean, the fact that you press a button and you wait a quarter to half second before you actually are in block, and that's your parry state. And the fact that you go through this means the whole thing's very sluggish. The reactions they expect you to have from the enemies don't match the mechanics. I mean, I'd say 90% of the time in this game, for a parry or a block, I was pressing the button, and I wasn't always pressing the button slow. So, and I got hit often, you know, and I think it's pretty rough. I mean, Sekiro wasn't too far behind it. Also, I think Dark Souls was better in giving you immediate block and then giving you the ability to break animations with block. I think that's very important, being able to cancel block animation, because at least if you're blocking and you want to attack, so when you think there's an opening to attack the enemy, you can at least cancel your attack animation by hitting block again. And if it's immediate, then that means that visually you can see, you can be much faster to respond to enemies. The fact that you have to do this slow response thing and measured like blocking is really frustrating. So I can understand some of the cases. I also think that you know, this whole taking force to do a strong attack, I think that was a very poor decision. And I get what they were kind of going for with it. Yeah, the fact that it was a metered resource and you kind of built into it, you know, like it doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel very Jedi, like where you want to, you know, it's a game. I get it. And I understand how they did a meter mechanic for it. But treating a regular attack, like if they were giant, big, like telegraphing, jump in the sky and do major, like big over attacks, not just a big chop in a little like chop flip, I think they missed huge opportunities there. If they wanted to go big with using force enabled strong attacks, they needed to go extra big, fighting game big, and not like normal, like here's me using a force attack, you know, like it's the worst. It doesn't hit you with that Jedi fantasy fulfillment, not at all. I think they were a little weak on overall combos. They had some combos. I did like how they tried to give you better combos based on the timing. So if you slowed your timing down to match when you did the strikes, very good stuff there. I think they just didn't give you the ability to tech into more attacks, you know, to expand them a bit. They hit all the main tropes for I think force attacks. You had your pull and your push and your slow. Okay, fair enough. You had your lightsaber throw, which we used a little bit. I think they took a little bit too much time to meter them all out throughout the game. In terms of like engagements, right? Some of the level design was really good. I really liked. I mean, there were some really good moments in this game, and I didn't mind the sliding stuff. I think they did a good job incorporating the sliding throughout the game, which was pretty cool. And I think also, I mean, even the last boss battle wasn't bad. I don't have any qualms with that. Learning the boss, I mean, aside from the fact that the base mechanics of combat kind of suck, but you know, setting up the bosses and whatnot, that was pretty okay. I enjoyed the exchange. I mean, when Vader showed up, that was really cool, right? I think the interaction with the characters was also pretty good. And then the worlds, the environments, going to visit these planets, all great, all really good stuff. I think there were many times where I just wanted to stop and drink in the environment. All very good stuff. The game gets a very solid 7. I don't have huge gripes. But I guess then the way they seeded the environment. I mean, look, I got to about 60% of the game and I was already like just bored enough with combat that I just started running past. And at least I could do that, right? Like we just expedited the end of this game, like we were speedrunning at that point. And it was good that they, for the most part, we didn't break too many things, right? We had the double ATST engagement where we had to go back and re-trigger that before we could get to the end of the game, or end of that level. I think not fixing the audio sync for voice.
What did she tell you?
She told me you betrayed her to the Empire. Is it true?
She'll say anything to jeopardize this mission.
Is it true?
I played this game all the way to this point, and both times, right? If you want to have meaningful interactions, having desynced voice and animation is terrible. I mean, that's a real blemish on a game that's about storytelling. So the fact that they had that bug in there, they didn't fix it. I'm sure it was you know, reported. Usually that's the way things go. And that they didn't fix is a real bummer. It's the game. I mean, the game had some serious bugs too, right? Like, we didn't hit them, but there were a few cases where you got stuck bugs. You could get to places you weren't supposed to. I think the lore was nice. They seeded the lore in the world, and you could kind of pick and choose. That was pretty okay. I think the Dark Souls inspiration was just okay. I you know, like, I mean, good for them. Yeah, but they ripped really heavily from the mechanic. They're not the only game, right? Like, new mechanics are hard, innovation's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's if they wanted to go in that direction, they had too many mobs to make it meaningful. Like, and they kind of, like, you know, they gave you the special stormtroopers with the you know, with like the staves, and they were glowy purple, and they were harder for sure. But I feel like there was maybe too many, but you had this big environment where you wanted to seed the world full of enemies. And then, you know, when you're, the reality is too, is like when you're fighting a super ramming goat that you have to dodge, it's kind of bullshit. Like, that doesn't feel awesome Jedi. Like, if they wanted to go hardcore into the Dark Souls realm where you were stronger, I think they should have just removed some of the progression, kept what they had, but they should have just made you stronger and then just said, okay, cool. We'll get rid of, I mean, you can't really have a Star Wars game without a lot of Jedi, okay? Or not Jedi, but stormtroopers, so fair enough. It's a strange balance, right? So, I mean, I get it. At least the mobs went down pretty quickly, and that part I appreciated. Like, I mean, the end sequence when I got to be a total badass in the prison, and all the stormtroopers were shooting, and then the main staff guy was there. We got to be badass in the way we handle an encounter. That was really good. When you have moments and some combat scenarios that allow you to suss out like an optimal way to go through them, all very good stuff. I thought they did a great job with that. Yeah, overall a 7. Luckily they didn't get too many. Like, I was getting to the point where I had my fill of jumping puzzles and environmental environmental traversal. But then they did really good stuff. Like when you got the extra stakes that helped you climb really fast, that was really good. Like, I love when designers say, okay, you know how to climb a wall now. Let's stop wasting your time and let's build something into that, right? And when the boss was climbing up the wall and we were doing that, that was good. There were some really good moments in this game. When we were in the, you know, like there was a lot of like the heavy-handed, like, oh, now we've taken away all of your weapons, and oh, now you don't have your lightsaber, right? Like, there were good beats in this game. I can see why people really enjoy this game. And look, the reality is for people that haven't had a really good Star Wars single player experience for a very long time, this game is amazing for them. You know, like, the people haven't had a chance to live in this universe. And look, I mean, the thing is that Star Wars games have always been about a lot of good, strong storylines, right? Like, and meaningful interaction between characters and an adventurous spirit, right? And living in this realm of fantasy and sci-fi, and it's amazing. Star Wars can be amazing, and I think this game serves some of that up. And I think as far as a first entry into the game, into the series, they're in the right direction. Coming out with a 7 is fantastic. I also think, yeah, no, and I mentioned this before, but they really, after playing Control, and that really screwed it for me. Control, your agency between your powers and the world, everything, because they're basically force powers. You're pushing stuff, you're pulling stuff, you're throwing stuff. You know, like they really nailed it. I mean, they nailed it so well that they set the new bar for what your effectiveness of powers in a world could feel like. Everything, you know, there was so much that responsiveness. And then you come into a game that's about the same thing. And then you have things like a lightsaber where you walk through a passageway and it doesn't cut things automatically, right? Like your force effects didn't do much to the environment. Yeah, you had things you could interact with puzzle-wise. Oh, by the way, some of the puzzles are neat, like the big rolly ball puzzles and things like that. I like those. Those were good. But you know, they need to get more agency with you and your abilities that are not just specific. It's not just about force pulling the vine or the lever or the door or the platform. It's about how things react in the world were important. You know, like when you force push, you know, dust and plants should wiggle and like things, you know, like if you got trees by, you should crack the tree, you know, like trunks, and you should feel like you're gaining power, right? I guess also the main character's journey, like it was good, good enough. I mean, they hit some notes where the characters had some meaningful interactions, but some of the art, I mean, God, the Wookiee art was fugly. Oh my God, like those are some of the worst and ugliest Wookiees I've ever seen. I think that's the DrBossKey assessment. So yeah, so my expectation for what I want and what I want to craft as a developer, someone that's been close. I have passion for games, and I can't help it. I can't just give them a pass because of Star Wars, because I got an itch scratched, you know. And for me, it's always games first, license second. But that's my soapbox. I had a good time. I'm glad we finished it. I didn't want to leave it in the lurch. It was a force of will, but that's what we do.